We understand, Homer. After all, we are from the land of chocolate.
The land of chocolate.
One of the best parks in the world with one of the most diverse coaster lineups is Hersheypark in Hershey, Pennsylvania. This park marked the midway point on my cross-country trip. Today, I'll be looking back at my very hot and humid day at Hersheypark on Monday, July 16th, 2018. We got to Hersheypark about 45 minutes before opening, and if you've ever been there, you know that the park is part of this big sports and entertainment complex with a stadium and an arena, but all we had to do was follow the crowds to the park. You walk through the strip mall full of stores to get to the park entrance, and early on it looked like it was going to be extremely crowded. To this point, we hadn't had much of a problem with crowds, and since it was a Monday, we were expecting it not to be so crowded. Once the park opened, we went straight to my most anticipated coaster, Skyrush. Since the park had just opened, it was pretty much a walk-on, and I got the back row, right-hand side, wing seat, and I was pretty stapled even before leaving the station. The whole ride was filled with airtime, but instead of getting airtime, all I got was searing leg pain, and my butt did not leave the seat once. Also, on some of those turns, there was a pretty bad rattle. It didn't help out that we sat on the brake run for about 5 minutes with my legs going numb, so I walked away from Skyrush extremely disappointed, but I knew that I would give it a second chance later. Our next coaster was Comet, the classic PTC Woody, and this had a pretty long line which made us nervous about how the day would look, but I knew that based on our experience on the trip, especially at Canada's Wonderland, and especially since it was so hot that day, that sometimes the morning crowds disappear in the afternoon. But anyway, back to Comet. I thought this ride was amazing. It was smooth, full of airtime, and in my opinion, so much better than the Monster Hypercoaster right next to it. We hiked up the hill to Great Bear, which was a station wait, and we got the back row, and I thought this was a unique B&M invert. It was awesome, definitely one of my favorite inverts. We started knocking stuff out in the back of the park, starting with the very average Mine Train Trailblazer, and then going to the awesome Intamin Accelerator, Stormrunner. I was pleasantly surprised that this was a station wait, but I wasn't too happy that the back car was unavailable. I heard that the back car is roped off in the morning because they want the weight of the riders in the front to prevent a rollback, or something along those lines, which I thought was interesting. The line was so short that my brother was trying to reserve tickets to the season premiere of Last Man Standing, and he couldn't do it before we boarded. But lucky for him, it's a very short ride, so once we got off, he was able to get the tickets. After Stormrunner, we walked right on Sidewinder, which is a very good Vekoma boomerang with the vest restraints, and those make a huge difference. We kept going down to the back of the park and hit Fahrenheit, the last elite coaster on our list, and a very unusual Intamin looper that has a layout that you would expect on a B&M, except for the vertical lift hill chain and the beyond vertical drop. This had one of the longer lines of the day, which apparently is pretty typical, but it was only about 20 minutes. This is a solid ride with a bit of a rattle, but it is a contender for the best ride in the park. We walked through the water park over to the polarizing lightning racer, which was completely dead. We walked right on both sides, and they were taking forever to dispatch, and the ride-op kept hitting the stupid "Start Your Engines" button over and over again.
Your engines! Start your engines! Start your engines!
Which sounds a lot sadder than the epic "Gentlemen, Start Your Engines" from I-305.
Gentlemen! Start your engines!
The only thing sadder than the soundbite was the ride itself. The racing aspect was pretty good, but the ride absolutely fell flat. Maybe because we were riding in mostly empty trains, but this ride did nothing for me. So next was Laugh Track, which had a long line. All in all about 30 minutes, but it was partially in the shade and partially indoors, so we didn't really mind the break. I noticed when someone got off the ride, they puked on the ride platform, which caused the ride ops to scramble to clean it up, and that slowed down the ops. As for the ride, it's pretty fun. It's a well-themed spinning coaster, though between the spinning and the heat, I guess it was too much for that person who tossed their cookies. I guess it's just good that they didn't do it inside the car. We rode the Wild Mouse with a coaster enthusiast that was sitting in front of us, so we were actually talking parks and coasters for the duration of the ride. And then we got a ride on the much-hated Wildcat, the original GCI. This coaster was a walk-on, and it was pretty bad. If RMC isn't busy, perhaps they can take a trip over to Hersheypark sometime soon. We walked all the way back across the park to get the final credit, Super Duper Looper, the first looping coaster on the East Coast. This is a good classic with a good terrain layout. It's pretty forceless, but it has so much going on around it that it makes it more exciting. Since we were done with the first round of coasters, my brother got a pizza at the Dispatch Pizzeria next to Skyrush, but I was too cheap to buy overpriced park food, so I ate whatever I smuggled in my pockets.
You have a granola bar and a bag of Cheetos in my pocket.
And then we rode the Sky Ride that gives an awesome view of the hollow section of the park, especially Great Bear. We kicked off our re-rides with another amazing ride on Comet, which is one of the most underrated coasters I've ever ridden, and the line was much shorter than before. We gave Skyrush another shot, which was a station wait, and I got back row middle seat this time, and I didn't get stapled in the station, but at the bottom of the first drop, my thighs were crushed. We were finished with Skyrush, and this ride, which I thought could be top 10, ended up being one of my least favorite coasters on the trip.
We rode Skyrush again, second time, and the last time. I think everyone agrees on that. No more Skyrush. Whoever designed those trains should not be allowed to design roller coasters or roller coaster trains. It's just not pleasant. And on top of that, the layout's not even that good either. The drop's okay. But if you'd have told me before the trip that Skyrush would not even make my top 50, I would not have believed you, but here we are. Skyrush, not good. Not a fan. Not a fan at all.
We went on a photo lap and walked back towards the water park to get a ride on the Ferris wheel for pictures. And then we waited a while to get a second ride on Fahrenheit. Got another station wait ride on Storm Runner, which we were able to get the back row this time. And we ended our coaster riding day with another ride on Great Bear. We hit the souvenir shops and we were really hard pressed to find any good park merch, mainly because most of their souvenirs were Hershey chocolate related, so that was kind of frustrating. We were out of there by 6, and even though we didn't have to drive anywhere that night, it was just miserably hot and humid, by far the hottest day of the trip, so we were ready to go back to the hotel. So here are my thoughts on the park. It has a huge variety of rides, and for most people, I know that Skyrush is the standout ride, but for me it was really between Storm Runner, Fahrenheit, and Comet. Despite having a solid deep lineup, none of the coasters were able to crack my top 50. The park's terrain was pretty brutal on a hot day, but the crowds did disappear later in the day as I imagine a lot of the people went to the water park. The operations were solid, all of the coasters were open, and they were running multiple trains on everything. The theming of this park was also completely random. Some of the rides were Hershey themed, but most of them made no sense, which isn't a bad thing. It's just not something you see too often. In 2020, they're getting a new area called Chocolate Town, which will feature a new B&M hyper called Candymonium, which seems redundant because of Skyrush, but this one might be more of a GP favorite because it will undoubtedly be more comfortable. I think that at some point in the future they could RMC Wildcat. They already have Comet and Lightning Racer, and Wildcat isn't doing anything for the lineup, so that makes a lot of sense. They had so many coasters that we didn't do any of the flat rides, including the new Triple Tower, although I was disappointed that their Sky Tower was closed because that would have given me some great photo ops. Here are the final ride counts. 2 on Skyrush, 2 on Storm Runner, 2 on Fahrenheit, 2 on Comet, 2 on Great Bear, 2 on Lightning Racer, 1 on Super Duper Looper, 1 on Wild Mouse, 1 on Wildcat, 1 on Trailblazer, 1 on Laugh Track, 1 on Sidewinder, and we decided to skip Coco Cruiser. The biggest surprise of the day was Comet. Nobody talks about this coaster, but I think it's up there with Phoenix, which was just voted the best wooden coaster in the world. The biggest disappointment were Skyrush's trains. I knew they would probably be bad, but I had hoped that I could manage them, but I couldn't, and they destroyed the ride for me. So let me know what you think of Hersheypark in the comments below, and if you're a Skyrush fan, you can rip me apart in the comments. Also, what this park does well and what it could improve on. Also, be sure to leave this video a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys all next time.